Welcome to Burnout-Free Me, your success and well-being podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am so glad you're here. Let's go from burnout to breakthrough together. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Daring DVM. This is episode number 121. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grimm, veterinarian, a life coach, and fellow high achiever who's been exactly where you are right now. Now, if you have ever wondered why you just cannot seem to stop scrolling, why the hit of accomplishment never seems to last, or why you feel more exhausted the harder you chase relief, this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about the most powerful chemical of them all, dopamine, the driver of motivation, craving, and addiction, the ruler of our pain and pleasure centers. We're going to explore how dopamine impacts our nervous system, our safety and survival instincts, and even our burnout cycles. And most importantly, I'll share strategies to reset your relationship with dopamine so you can step off the hamster wheel of chasing relief and start anchoring yourself in real balance. Now, before we get started, if you are ready to not just learn about burnout, but actually recover from it and prevent it for good, I invite you to join my Burnout-Free Me coaching program. Inside, I teach you tools to reset your nervous system in real time, rebuild your energy, and create sustainable success without running yourself into the ground anymore. You can learn more and get started by heading to the link in the show notes. Friends, let's talk about dopamine and why it feels like it's running the show. Here's the thing. Dopamine isn't good or bad. It's simply a messenger, a neurotransmitter designed to help us survive. It drives us towards rewards like food, water, sex, and social connection. It motivates us to keep going when life is hard. Without it, we'd lose drive completely. But here's where it gets complicated. Dopamine doesn't just make us like something. It makes us want it. The anticipation, the craving, the pull, that's dopamine. And this system is directly tied to our nervous system's regulation of safety and survival. Just think about it. When you feel unsafe, whether it's from a true external threat or maybe the internal pressure of being overwhelmed at work, your nervous system flips into a sympathetic state, fight, flight, or freeze. Your brain immediately seeks out relief, comfort, or even distraction. That could mean procrastination, food or wine, Instagram, throwing yourself back into work to feel productive. Each of those things delivers a little dopamine hit, calming your nervous system temporarily. But here's the trap. Every dopamine high comes with an equal and opposite low. Pleasure and pain are processed in the same brain regions, and they always balance each other out. When the balance tips too often towards pleasure, your body and brain can adapt by swinging harder in the opposite direction, towards pain, which means that the very thing you're using to cope is actually deepening your burnout. So let's zoom out for a minute. In the world today, the sheer number, variety, and potency of rewarding stimuli is unlike anything humans have ever faced. We have video games, social media, online shopping, online gambling, streaming platforms. Every notification on your phone is basically a tiny little slot machine in your pocket. And this isn't your fault. Society is engineered to keep you hooked. Dopamine fuels not just individual habits, but whole industries. And as a high achiever, you're especially vulnerable because your nervous system is already primed to chase productivity, success, and even relief. Now, there is a hidden cost. When we chase these dopamine-driven highs, we can end up unintentionally avoiding everyday life. So we lose touch with grounding practices like sleeping, cooking meals, connecting with people in person, or even just sitting with ourselves. These are the things that would typically help anchor our nervous system. But instead, we end up overstimulated, undersleeping, we can be disconnected, and still wondering why we feel so tired and unsatisfied. So, addiction, it isn't just about the substance. It's the continued compulsive pursuit of anything, whether that be work, screen time, perfectionism, even when it harms us or those we love. And because we're a social species, these behaviors can get normalized when we see everybody else doing them. Now, here's another layer that we don't often talk about. Our nervous system shapes not just our present behaviors, but our biology. So, stressors, trauma, adverse childhood experience, what we talk about as ACE scores, these create epigenetic changes that alter our gene expression, which means our dopamine pathways and our stress response, even our vulnerabilities to addiction, can be passed down through generations. This is what we mean when we talk about generational trauma. If you grew up in an environment where stress, chaos, lack of safety was the norm, your brain may already have a different balance point for pleasure and pain. This means that you have to be more intentional about how you reset and regulate your nervous system. And let me be clear, experiencing difficult experiences isn't something that we want to avoid at all costs. If we try to just live a life of only ease and happiness, we risk things like entitlement, fragility, and disconnection from reality. In fact, resilience is built not in the absence of discomfort, but in our willingness to experience it without resistance. Which brings me to one of the most important practices for breaking free of this dopamine cycle, and that is learning to tolerate discomfort. When you sit in boredom, instead of distracting yourself, when you allow your mind to wander without grabbing your phone, when you let yourself feel restless, tired, or frustrated without immediately trying to numb out, you're retraining your nervous system. Because boredom isn't actually a problem, it's just an opportunity. It's where your discovery happens, where creativity can bubble up, where you start questioning the meaning and purpose of your life and the things that you do. And this space reconnects you to yourself, and it helps anchor you in your parasympathetic state, that rest and digest that restores your body and mind. Now, the opposite, constantly distracting yourself, numbing out on social media, or trying to control every experience, is exhausting. It keeps your nervous system stuck in fight or flight, which is why so many of the high achievers I help are living in fatigue, anxiety, frustration, and sometimes even physical pain without a clear medical cause. This is your nervous system crying out for attention. So, how does this actually work? I want you to imagine a seesaw. In America, you call it a teeter-totter. Now, on one side is pleasure, and on the other side is pain. And they share the same fulcrum, the same overlapping brain regions, and they always balance out. When you experience pleasure, say the dopamine hit of checking off a task or hitting the buy now button online, your seesaw tips towards pleasure. And the more intense the dopamine release and the faster it happens, the more the seesaw tips. And here's the catch. Your brain immediately works to restore balance through homeostasis. So that pleasure, the seesaw tips equally hard in the opposite direction, towards pain. And that's why you can sometimes feel empty or dissatisfied afterward. This is the biology of dopamine. And over time, with repeated exposure, your dopamine response gets weaker and shorter, while the pain response, known as the after response, can get stronger and longer. This is called neuroadaptation. It's how we build tolerance, which means your capacity for pleasure decreases and your vulnerability to pain increases. This is why the pursuit of pleasure can eventually, counterintuitively, lead to the inability to actually enjoy it. It's why so many high achievers relapse into burnout patterns. They're just trying to feel normal again. And the good news is, if you stop feeding this cycle for long enough, your brain can readapt. Your nervous system can rebalance. But you have to be willing to ride out the discomfort in the meantime. So let's talk about cravings. Every time you're exposed to a cue, a notification sound, a smell, a certain time of day, your brain gets a pre-reward dopamine spike. That little surge creates a pre-reward dopamine deficit as an after response. The reason being that the deficit then motivates you to seek out the reward, and that is a craving. And cravings often translate into automatic behavior before you're even conscious of it. This is why you can end up eating 5 cookies when your intention was to only eat 1. This is also why failed expectations can feel so crushing. When you anticipate a reward and you don't get it, dopamine doesn't just drop back to baseline. It plummets way below baseline. And that's why losing hurts more than never expecting anything at all. It's why so many people try not to get their hopes up for fear of the disappointment if something doesn't work out. And a very interesting thing is it's also why people chase losses, like those who are addicted to gambling. Sometimes they're actually secretly looking for the loss because they know that once they've had so many losses and disappointment, the thrill of the win and the dopamine hit will be even bigger next time. Now, as you keep doing these things, every little dopamine hit creates permanent changes in your brain. And this is known as experience-dependent plasticity. Your brain literally encodes the memory of the reward and becomes sensitized to the stimulus. And that's why it can sometimes feel impossible to just stop behaviors that aren't serving you. But there is hope, because things like learning also increase dopamine. New, novel, and stimulating experiences and environments can build fresh pathways, neural pathways, that bypass those sensitized circuits, which means you can actually rewire your brain through intentional healthy behaviors that create new intentional healthy habits. So what does this actually mean for you? The high achiever running on fumes. It means that to recover from burnout, you have to also reset your dopamine system and anchor your nervous system in safety. And the good news is you don't need a total life overhaul. You just need to start small. Small, intentional practices make the biggest difference over time. So, what I want to do is share some practical ways to begin this. Number one, practice boredom. You heard that. I know you're probably rolling your eyes at me because who wants to be bored? But boredom is not actually wasted time. It's actually a very powerful nervous reset. So, what you want to do is actually schedule white space into your day the way you would schedule a meeting or an appointment. And you can start with just 5 minutes. No phone, no to-do list, just sit. And if your brain starts screaming at you, this is a waste of time, you should be doing something, that's okay. That is the exact moment your nervous system is learning that it's safe to be still. And you might notice different thoughts come up during this process, and that's part of the discovery. You're giving your nervous system a chance to actually process what's going on in your head instead of just staying overstimulated. So you can think of it like strength training for your brain. At first, it feels uncomfortable, but over time, you build capacity. And boredom, it can become the fertile soil for your creativity, clarity, and self-connection. Now, number two is delay gratification. This one is a total game changer because dopamine wants us to want it right now. But the more we practice waiting, the more we rewire our cravings. So next time you feel a craving, whether it's for your phone or a snack or to check your email, set a timer for 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, do something grounding. Take some deep breaths, step outside, go drink some water, stretch. Notice the craving rise and then start to fall. And after 10 minutes, ask yourself, do I still want this? Because sometimes the craving passes completely. And other times you'll still indulge, but you'll do it with awareness and not this compulsion. And this simple practice strengthens your prefrontal cortex. Remember that part of the brain that makes your intentional decisions? And this helps calm the impulsive drive of the craving cycle and reconnect you with your parasympathetic state. And if you can tolerate something like 10 minutes, from a coaching perspective, what I really recommend is waiting at least 24 hours before you decide if you're going to follow through with a craving. Now, number three is prioritize your self-care. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying this, but as high achievers, we're famous for putting our self-care at the bottom of the to-do list. But the thing is, your nervous system cannot rebalance dopamine without meeting the basics. And remember, we're not just talking about bubble baths and massages. We're talking about your survival wiring. So, when it comes to the basics, sleep. Aim for a consistent bedtime. Create a wind-down ritual. No screens an hour before bed. Dim your lights. Let your nervous system shift into a relaxed parasympathetic mode. Another one is nutrition. Don't skip your meals. Your brain needs steady fuel to regulate its dopamine. So pair protein with complex carbs to help stabilize your blood sugar. And don't forget to hydrate. Even mild dehydration can raise your cortisol and make your body feel unsafe. So keep your drinks visible and easy to reach. And don't forget connection. Text a friend, share a meal, eye contact, and laughter. These release oxytocin, which helps balance your nervous system and reduces your drive to overseek dopamine hits elsewhere. And as always, my high achiever, please remember, Self-care is not a luxury. It is the foundation for your brain's ability to feel normal without constant stimulation. You don't need to earn rest or self-care. It is your right. Now, number 4, notice your cues, create awareness. Most of us don't even realize how much our behavior is on autopilot. But things like cravings are almost always linked to cues, like the time of day, emotions you're feeling, maybe an unmet need, or even the environment you're in. So, what you can try is for 1 week, track your cravings. Each time you feel the need to scroll, eat a snack, pour a drink, reply to an email when you're not supposed to be working, jot down, what am I feeling? What just happened? What time is it? What do I actually need? And after a few days of doing this, you'll start to see patterns. Maybe you're always craving sugar after a stressful meeting, or you're reaching for your phone right before bed. And once you start to see these cues, you can create space for choice because you can decide, actually, I'm not hungry, I'm anxious, and I'm going to choose a nervous system regulation tool instead, like breathing, moving, or connecting. So this step helps you turn that unconscious autopilot into conscious awareness. And awareness is where your freedom begins. And then number 5, lean into meaning. This one is about anchoring. Remember, dopamine isn't really about pleasure, it's actually about motivation. If your only motivation is chasing the next quick hit for relief, then you're just going to stay trapped in that cycle. But when you connect your daily actions to deeper meaning, your nervous system calms and your brain stops searching for all of these external highs. So some practices would be each morning, ask yourself and answer, what actually matters to me today? Not what looks good on paper, not what impresses somebody else, but what truly aligns with my values. You can also reframe things that you don't like. For example, writing records might feel like busy work, but if you connect it to your value of providing excellent care, it can help shift the drudgery of the record writing to one of purpose and fulfillment. You can also practice micro meanings. So that's when you take every small little action, like cooking your dinner, walking the dog, helping a colleague. You can make those become more rewarding when you anchor them in your values and purpose. Because when your actions flow from meaning, then it's no longer about chasing the pleasure. Dopamine becomes a motivator that serves you rather than one that's just ruling your behavior on autopilot. And together, these types of practices teach your nervous system that it does not need constant stimulation to feel safe. Instead, you build tolerance for discomfort, anchor yourself in presence, and start to reclaim your energy from the endless cycle of craving and crashing. Now, I want to leave you with an interesting story that illustrates how much meaning influences our experience of pain and pleasure. So, there's a story of a construction worker who went to the ER in excruciating pain because he had stepped on a long nail that had gone right through his boot. He couldn't even put weight on his foot. But when the doctors took an X-ray, they saw that the nail hadn't actually pierced his foot at all. It had slipped right between his toes. So his pain was real, but not because of a physical injury. It was because of his brain's expectation of pain. Likewise, you can experience more pleasure from your expectation of it. So if you are someone who is trying to lose weight, yet you receive a lot of pleasure from food, think about the meaning behind it because a lot of times it also has something to do with comfort or memories or trying to meet an unmet need. These are reasons why it can be difficult to break the cycle. This is how powerful our bodies are. Remember, pleasure and pain, they're not just about chemicals and neurotransmitters and pathways in the brain. They're about meaning, context, and your perception. So the more we can anchor ourselves in awareness, the more we can shift our experience. And also remember, every pleasure has a pain cost, and every pain has a role in protecting or guiding us. We need both to survive. The goal is not to just eliminate discomfort, it's to learn how to ride the waves without getting stuck in the cycle. So if you've been feeling trapped in that cycle of chasing relief or never quite reaching the finish line, I want you to know it's not a personal failure. This is just biology. It's your nervous system trying to protect you. And you can reset it. You don't have to keep running on dopamine highs and crashing into lows. You can learn to anchor yourself in safety, tolerate discomfort, and rebuild your energy in a way that is sustainable. And, little announcement, that's exactly what I help you do inside Burnout-Free Me. It's where we take the science of the nervous system and the psychology of high achievers and the tools of real-time regulation and put them into practice. So if you're ready to finally break free from burnout, not just temporarily, but for good, come join me. Once again, you'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for spending this time for me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, or subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Until then, give yourself permission to step out of this dopamine trap and back into balance. And as always, dare to dream.